Hello, welcome back to Britannia Motorcycles. Today I'm going to talk about the gate scoring system because I've put up some videos showing the sections I have laid out here at my place in Richford in upstate New York, and it may have been a little confusing that there weren't any lines through the sections and I kept talking about these gates. So what I'm going to do now is give you a quick run through of what was originally the Moorland gate system. Now, it was called the Moorland system because that's the name of the little village that Carl Peters, who invented it, lives in. Now, Carl's been involved with trials since the 70s. He's a top class rider. His son Ray has been top of the nationals for a number of years, and Carl's laid on national trials and even world rounds at Watkins Glen, which is just a few miles away from where he lives. So he wanted a system that did away with some of the problems of the ordinary scoring system and made almost for a perfect ride. So what he came up with was an idea of, instead of having a line laid out in the section, you had a start and finish, and you have obstacles which are marked as gates. What you do is, as you ride the section, you actually accrue points. But the big problem with it is, if you take a dab, you lose all the points you've got. So this is the idea of the perfect ride. You've either got points or you've got nothing. So it's either like getting a 5 or a 0. No in between. So that ran for quite a while, certainly for a long time before I came to the States. When I started riding it, I really liked the system, but I didn't like the way the scoring was done. Now, the reason I liked the system was that here in the States, if you ride certainly a modern trial, you'll find there are 5 lines generally. There's rookie, novice, intermediate, advanced and expert. And then as far as the trophies go, there are even age classifications. So you can be a 35 novice, a 45, a 60. As my friend Howard up in Middlesbrough says, it's riding for pots. So I began to think about the system. Well, the first thing I didn't like was that there were a number of gates, and the gates had different point values depending on how difficult they were. And this could get you up to having 20 odd points in a section. Now, if you're a competitive type, which I'm not, I must admit, and you're going neck and neck with somebody, and he rides the section and gets the 20 points, and then you ride it and you dab and get nothing, you're never going to catch up with him, are you? So the first thing I thought of was, well, why don't we just make it 5 points? We'll have 5 gates, 1 point each, and then just like an ordinary trial where the maximum penalty you can get is 5 points, here the maximum score you can get is 5 points. So a group I was involved in, NIACT, the New York Air-Cooled Trials group, they adopted that system, and that was fine, but it still had one other thing that I didn't like, and that was losing all your points. Now, we've all gone into a section and just bobbled at the beginning and taken a dab. Well, if you do that, you might as well not ride the section because you're not going to get any points. Or what could be even worse is you have an absolute blinder of a ride, get all the gates, and then just at the end you take a dab, you've lost all your points. So I wanted to modify that a bit. So the next thing was to say, well, okay, you can keep the points you get up until you dab. So let's say you got 3 points and then you dabbed. Well, that's it. You wouldn't be able to get any more, but you would keep the 3. But that didn't solve the problem of the dab entering the section. You know, if you dabbed when you went in, you might as well not ride. So my friend Mike Comer, who runs the trials shop here in New York State and is a top class rider, very good to watch, very smooth, he came up with the idea of, well, why don't we combine the two? You get your points from doing the gates, and if you have any dabs, you just deduct them from how many points you have. So that seemed perfect, particularly as my trial was now going to allow modern riders. Now, what I did here was I very much wanted to keep the idea that it was a vintage trial. I didn't want to get it as some mishmash of the two. So I laid out sections, as you'll see from the videos, long sections, and I made these for the vintage bikes. 5 gates, including the exit gate, because I think if you're just starting and you don't like any of the gates and you can ride through the section from end to end, because a lot of it's loose stones and mud and things like that, If you get to the end without a dab, you deserve a point. So what I did was I laid out vintage sections, and then I added 2 extra gates for the modern guys, 2 harder gates, a 2.1 and an even harder 3.1. So that gave 10 points. So we're still at a reasonable score for the section. Now, being able to deduct your dabs meant that if you looked at a 2-point or a 3-point gate and thought to yourself, well, I could try that, then you can have a go and maybe take one big long dab to get you round something or over something, and you still make points. Because old age creeping in, one of the other things I wanted to mention was that if you lose all your points, it makes you ride very conservatively. You'll look at a gate and think to yourself, well, I think I could do it, but I'm not sure. Well, you're not going to try it if you're going to lose all your points if you don't make it. So that was the other thing about being able to keep all your points and just deduct your dabs. It made people try things, and that's really what I wanted them to do. So that's basically the way the point system works. But the way the sections are laid out really makes it easy for you to lay out something for everybody. For novice riders, expert riders, for SWMs and matchless 500s. Because when you get to the section, let's say, you can choose how you ride. So if it's a great big log and you're on a matchless 500, you don't have to do it. But you could do the mud, you could do the loose rocks, you can do some of the turns, and so on. All you have to do is get from start to finish. You're only allowed to go through the gates in one direction to get a point. You can come through a gate from the opposite direction to maneuver around the section, but if you do that, the gate has been used, you can't use it again, and you don't get a point for it. So that's the gate scoring system. I hope it's been relatively clear. I know I've sort of thought the things I should have said earlier and then fitted them in. But now if you watch the videos of the sections, you'll get an idea of why there are choices and why there are different point gates. And if there's anything you need to know about how to lay the sections out, because you really do have to lay them out as a whole section. I've seen gate sections where it's just been someone's found, 5 obstacles and basically never thought about the rest of the section. The ultimate would be a field with 5 logs in it. I mean, you either do the logs or you don't do the logs, but the rest of it's just riding on grass. So what you've got to think about is how you're approaching the gates, how you're exiting the gates, because if you're riding the expert line, in effect, which would be trying to do all the gates, the difficulty might not necessarily be the gate itself. It might be a log which you think, right, anybody could get over that log. Ah, yes, but you've got an off-camber turn to get to the log, and then when you get over it, maybe you've got to do a really quick turn and come back down the slope. So you've got to think of the section from start to finish, but it certainly gives you a lot more flexibility for a wide range of bikes and a wide range of riders. So I think that's about it. If you want to email me, you can do that through the website www.britanniamotorcycles.com, and I'll be happy to answer any questions and clarify any points. So that's it for today. See you again. Bye now.